Y'all know I want this channel to be a positive place. I'm usually going for a laugh, and if not, maybe sharing a life lesson, usually at the expense of myself and a mistake I made. I want people to leave my channel feeling a little more positive or optimistic about the world we live in. And at the same time, I'd feel irresponsible ignoring what's happening today. I can't imagine in 20 years my kids, Eddie, Teddy, Freddie, Betty, and Clarence. Why Clarence? That way every time he talks back to me, I could be like, this kid's a gangster, his real name's Clarence. I can't imagine them asking me what I was doing during this unprecedented time in history and showing them a video of their great-grandma making jokes about male private part, which is what was scheduled for today. But this situation is too big to be ignored. On top of that, as some of you know, the criminal justice system is like a weird, nerdy passion of mine. Recently, somebody asked me if the YouTube comments ever bother me, and it's weird because, like, I'm literally fine with any personal attack. Honestly, without it, I would have never known that I chewed gum with my mouth open, so thank you. But literally, the only comments where I catch myself on tilt is on that video titled, Uber driver pulled over, rider has warrant. And the comment that gets me is when people call that title clickbait. Just because you don't know what a warrant is doesn't mean it's clickbait. It just means that you don't understand the system that allows another person that you've never met to detain you. And that's detain you. Not block you off Twitter, not stop you from going into a store, but literally detain you. And I'm not saying the system's inherently bad. We need police. I just don't know how people aren't fascinated by how it works. And I think it's part of the reason we got here. At the same time, as I step off my little soapbox, I have a very convicted belief that nobody actually cares what I have to say, in the sense that nobody's gonna change their mind based off of a 4-minute video of an Uber driver, a white Uber driver at that, sharing his opinion on the issue. I'm not a cop. I don't know the first thing about what it's actually like. But as a citizen, I'm so sick and tired of hearing the few bad apples excuse. This isn't an issue about the few bad apples. You can't tell me that the few bad apples of the Minneapolis Police Department just happen to be scheduled on the same shift at the same time in the same precinct in the city. Come on. This isn't about the few bad apples. This is a problem of how do we get the good apples to check the bad apple. And that's a tough question because, one, nobody actually thinks or will ever admit that they're a bad apple. And two, how do you get a coworker to report another coworker, especially when that coworker is supposed to have their back in life and death situations? At the same time, I will never, no matter how hard I try, understand what it's like to be a person of color in this country. I don't know why white people have such a hard time admitting that. If it makes you feel better, it's just as simple to say a person of color will never understand what a white person's life is like in this country. It doesn't take away from your struggle or your opinion when you admit you've never been in someone else's shoes. If anything, in my opinion, it strengthens it. It shows that you formed your opinion with perspective. So when I think about what happened in Minnesota, the person I identify with most is the bystander. Sitting there watching something unfold in front of my eyes that I know is wrong and having my pleas to stop it go ignored. And I wonder, if I recorded that video, knowing what I know now, after everything we've seen, would I upload it to social media? Or would I turn it over to the authorities in private? We have never, to my knowledge, seen such an undebatable example of an issue that is usually nuanced. And when that video was released for the first time, in the very beginning, everyone was on board with the same thing. I remember thinking, I've never seen anything like this. And then it quickly turned into something else, and I felt like I was listening to the same song played for the 100th time. It's just that this time it was turned up to max volume. And while that video was certainly not the cause, it was, in my opinion, the catalyst for all the buildings being burned, businesses permanently destroyed, thousands of arrests, hundreds of injuries, and sadly, a few more deaths. At the same time, without that video, does George Floyd's murder get brought to justice? The 3 other policemen didn't stop it publicly while it was happening. What makes you think those same authorities would stop it in private after the fact? What's interesting to me is that everyone seems to agree with the same thing. No one's saying they support bad cops, and nobody's saying they support racism, and nobody's saying they support looters. Well, almost no one. Don't you think looting is bad in general? What?
'Cause I want to be one.
You want to be what?
Hello there.
Yet here we still are, divided and angry. And I think it's because we hear a bunch of outward statements. You need to change. You need to fix this. You need to do better. And I spent the last couple days consumed by the news and social media and getting angry and upset, thinking about how they need to change. They need to fix this. They need to stop doing that. And I'll be honest, I got down, man. I forgot that I have the power over my own life and that I can be the change that I want to be. I think that's where people get frustrated. There's so much talk of change, but very little quantifiable solutions as to what that means and what you can do as an individual. And it's tough because every individual is different with different privileges and different goals for what they want to see. I'm not a cop or politician, so I have no delusions about the extent of the impact I can have as an individual. And this may sound cynical, but I've seen enough peaceful protests in my lifetime to wonder just how effective they actually are. A riot is the voice of the unheard, as MLK said, and by the looks of things, seems like a lot of things have gone unheard. At the same time, I have a hard time sitting here and condoning violence and destruction. So I don't know the answer. I don't know how to affect the change I want to see in this world. But I do know sitting on my couch, getting mad at the TV, does nothing. One of the reasons I like this Uber Confessions project is that I think it really shows how much alike we all are. And at the end of the day, I truly believe empathy is one of the most important medicines for any social illness. Empathy is not arguing back when someone gets upset, even if you wholeheartedly disagree with what they're saying. I'm not saying that because I'm trying to promote this kumbaya mentality, but I'm saying that because I've learned that it changes nothing meeting frustration with frustration. You're not going to get them to believe your point by arguing at their level. I know none of these videos are as jolting as what you see on TV, and that's why I wanted to share it. This is the current state of normal on what should have been a busy weekday lunch hour in the heart of town. There wasn't much going on, but there was this guy railing at the police officers saying all sorts of nasty stuff. And I can't imagine what it was like to have to put up with that.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Sit down with a big ass assault rifle.
And the cop that he was specifically laying into was amazing, just completely ignoring him. But then another officer interjected.
No, I still have one question for you, okay? How come you ain't in North Philly and West Philly for all the homicides that are going on and the children that are getting killed?
You know what I do?
And forget how you feel about the question she asked. All asking that question did was take this guy from a 7 and put him to a 10.
I'm on my way to work. I'm on my way to work. I came from North Philly. I live in North Philly. I got it tatted on my body.
Like, what did the cop who asked that question think the protester was going to say? Oh, that's a great question I never thought of. Time for me to go home. He went on louder and more vehemently.
You in the system. You said some of the old people, half our customers look like her.
Let him speak.
When I sold dope to white people mostly. Want to keep it real? Go down Kensington. They look like her, not us. Take a look around. Take a look around. They can't deal with society. They take drugs from society. We used to this shit. We used to it. They can't take it. They shoot up schools when they can't take bullying. Not us. We fight the fuck back.
Several minutes later, that first cop that was being laid into, he called the angry dude over to the side and they had a private civil conversation. I didn't even know it was happening until I went over to try to get a picture of the National Guard there and I saw them. It was discreet, done in private, and not meant to one-up or embarrass him. It was meant to affect change into this man. That's empathy. You see those news clips of the cops kneeling with protesters? You think those cops vetted each protester to find out exactly what it is they're kneeling for and make sure they were all in agreement? No, they just saw people in distress who needed someone to say, hey, I got your back. And that's policing at its finest. That's empathy. And because I know some people will ask in the comments, why did I blur their faces? Because of empathy. I recognize that I don't know the whole situation. I don't know what brought any of them to that point in time, in that moment. And it's silly to think that a 30-second clip of an interaction can accurately depict who these people are as citizens or police officers or protesters. This wasn't about what the dude was saying to the officers or the question that the officers asked. This is about the effect of arguing versus empathizing. And that's something that we all need to learn. And I don't want anyone to think I'm minimizing this issue into an interaction between a couple people on the street. It's just a lesson in how effective empathy can be, and I saw it play out in front of my own eyes, and I wanted to share with you guys what I learned. So if I had to answer my own question, would I share the video of the murder of George Floyd or keep it private and hand it over to authorities? I think the answer is It's too soon to tell. But I know that I can be the change that I want to see in this world, and I hope you do the same. That's the only chance we have that all of this wasn't in vain. I'm Driver Ed. I really appreciate you guys watching this video, and I have one request. If you didn't like this video, don't just give it a thumbs down. Put in the comments why you didn't like it. I would love, or shoot me a DM on Instagram, @EddieP.Doyle. I would love to have a conversation with you. I really would. I'm a well-seasoned Uber driver, which means I've talked to enough people to have a strong hunch that we agree more than we disagree. See you soon for our regularly scheduled programming. Appreciate you guys. Later.